Well, the going for the keep your nose clean strategy would normally be fine if you didn't have Takuma Sato as your driver. Takuma, unfortunately, has been doing anything but keeping his nose clean recently. It's a great shame because I believe the guy's got an enormous amount of promise. I think he's very, very brave and he's very talented, but he's throwing it into the wall far too often, and this is something that Jordan don't need.
Not when they're down to that number of cars as well. I mean, McLaren brought 5 and...
They started off with 38.
That's what they told you. Now, they brought 5 and have used 4, and the Marshall's damaged 1 and Kimi's damaged 4, and the maths is unbelievable. But Jordan really have a very fine line to tread now because...
Kimi, of course, being with McLaren.
Yes, exactly. But Jordan have a very fine line to tread because if they damage 1 now, it gives them no opt-out for the race. And the track temperature's gone up 1 degree. For the magic thing. Oh,
what is it with the bathrobes around here? Nobody gets dressed in the morning.
The trick is, if you're staying in one of the nice hotels, is to try and come away with one.
Perry tells me it costs £15,000 to stay at the Hotel de Perry during Monaco. Is that where you are this time?
It's if you've got a suite. I don't know what it is this weekend. So, air temperature 21, humidity 67. He said, changing the subject wildly.
Vastly, just in case the tax man's listening.
This the man I'm going to be very, very interested in watching, probably like the rest of the world, is Michael Schumacher. 3rd on the grid from yesterday's qualifying session. What will their setup be for warm-up? How will it transpire? How will they compare against the front row boys, McLaren and Williams? Have Ferrari got something that can take them through this race at a faster pace?
So I don't think the Ferraris were actually that far off the pace yesterday. I mean, they suffered more than the Williams and the McLarens were tracking, I think. Michael had the problem with his eye. He had another trouble when he went through the tunnels we've just seen, and it was full of smoke, and even Michael Schumacher backs off when he sees smoke in the tunnel. So
Cole Trickle didn't back off in Days of Thunder when he saw smoke.
Well, that's true, but then he...
I'm
quite frightened that you remember the name of that guy. But anyway, there were mitigating circumstances, and I don't think Ferrari will start to panic right now. They'll get a good solid setup, and even though they're not on the front row for the first time this year, they're still going to be very, very dangerous.
Moving back to the bathrobes, we've only seen men in them, no women. I suspect there's a Raging Bull lookalike convention in town, paying 15 grand a night for the privilege.
It could be.
Yes.
It could be.
In fact, you can remember Raging Bull. That wasn't Stallone, was it? No, that was De Niro.
Schumacher's out of his car, and I wonder if he's going to just do his... he's doing his normal trick, just making sure that both the T-car and his race car fully operational. And this is the man with the plan, Juan Pablo Montoya, starting from that pole position. That was a super lap by Juan. That really was. Big clearance at the top end of the grid. They set pole position by just about 0.4 of a second.
No, it was. You're right, absolutely fantastic, and it was great to see over half a dozen pole sitters at some point during. It was up and down and in and out. We had so many. DC was up on top and. Fantastic.
It was exciting.
It was a really good
qualifying
qualifying session.
run.
I think that's why this race bodes so well, is that it was so level, and we saw such a variety of driver up at the top, all putting in some very quick laps.
Peter has some thoughts on the pole winner's pole lap.
Thanks, Matt. Yes, I just think that was the most fabulous qualifying lap I've seen for a long time. And Juan Pablo was quite funny, actually, afterwards, describing it in detail. He was saying that he was a bit annoyed at Saint-Devote at the first corner because they changed the diff. They'd gone a bit tighter with the diff, and the car had a little bit more push than he thought, and he ran a little bit wide. And as he went up the hill, he said he was really angry and sort of cursing to himself. And as he got to the top there, he decided he was going to brake after the brow at the top, which was obviously, I'm sure Perry will tell us, is a pretty graphic thing to do. And he did that, and he said when he actually did that for the first time, he realised that the car was actually more stable. You brake after the brow rather than just on top of the hill there. So he was very pleased with that and got phenomenal grip as a result going into Casino Square.
Peter, you know that corner you're talking about? Yeah, that corner you're talking about, that's where I saw him overtake somebody round the outside in Formula 3000.
Yeah. He has no fear, this man. He's just brilliant. I was going to say his biggest worry thereafter was that Michael, who he knew was in front of him on a quick lap when he started his lap, might back off for some reason and slow him down, because he had that problem with Michael a little bit earlier in the session. Well, not a problem. He thought he did the right thing, let Michael pass, but Michael didn't see it that way. And he was just petrified that he was going to catch a slowing Michael towards the end of the lap. But luckily, or perhaps because he did the right thing, Michael stayed on it and he had that free lap. And he was absolutely phenomenal going into the swimming pool there. He was a lot quicker than Ralph.
Peter, it's interesting. Juan was saying yesterday also after qualifying that, you know, he loves street tracks. He did particularly well when he was racing in America on street circuits. Do you think it's his most natural environment?
I don't know. I think it's a bit of a boring answer, but I don't think there's an environment that is specific to Juan Pablo Montoya. I think he's just brilliant on fast corners. We've yet to see him really in the wet because, you know, the Michelin tyre hasn't been anything like the Bridgestone tyre in the wet. So let to see that. That's the prospect in store. But certainly in the dry, fast corners, slow, street circuits, lots of runoff area. The guy is just fabulous to watch. And he's very switched on here. He's got his family, he's got his parents here, and he's put them into his apartment. And he's checked out of his apartment, if you like, and he's staying in a hotel in Connie just to stay quiet and keep away from it all. And that, again, is good thinking.
I hope he's left in some bathrobes. Peter, we're going to leave you for a moment because I've got a technical question for the boys. They've been doing their revision. And I'm going to question them now about the ideal setup for this racetrack. What sort of downforce do you need? If you could have it perfect, how would you have it?
Well, if you have it perfect, you'd have massive downforce with no drag, and that's how you'd want it for all tracks. But you can't have that. Downforce causes drag, so you're going to increase the pitch of the front elements, as you can see on the screen now, the front wings, push them up, get more downforce from those. Side pod mounted winglets, that's an optional extra used by some teams. It just creates a few more kilograms of downforce. Obviously does start causing drag. Exactly the same function with the airbox mount that we see in position 3 there. These are just different options that you can do running a car. Axle line mounted rear wing, that's got 2 different functions. They can draw more air from under the floor as well, cause an overall downforce shift, and the rear wing, of course, you know, mounting maximum 3 elements, also having them sticking way up in the sky will give you maximum downforce. Think in terms of aircraft wings with this. An aircraft wing develops lift as it goes through the air, so there's a low pressure above it, develops lift. Invert that, and that's what you've got with a racing car. Something that's causing low pressure underneath the wings. The higher the element setting, the more low pressure, the more downforce you've got. And with a lot of tricky corners and the desperate need for traction around here, that's why you need big downforce.
Well, this is the only fast bit, isn't it? They're doing, what, 290 kilometres an hour through the tunnel. It's just under 200 mile an hour, and it's the only flat-out bit of the track. You're right, every other corner.
But Rivage is pretty quick.
Yeah, it needs a lot of downforce. So there's no real compromise there at all.
Just one snippet for you to chew over, chaps, and that's the news that Ferrari are running intermediates.
Yeah, I saw it when Michael went out, but he's probably just scrubbing those in, just taking the glaze off them. He should, if I'm correct, he should probably be back in the pits by now. In fact, he is. Yeah, he just wants to get rid of the. We've talked about this before, that when a tyre is made, it often comes out with a bit of the releasing agent on the tyre. You don't really want that, especially in a condition when intermediate tyres might be needed. So just to braid it off a little bit, get back down to the rubber that you need. Ralph Schumacher.
He's just covering all his bases again as usual, isn't it? I mean, it's like a pilot has a sort of checklist that he goes through up to make sure everything's right.
Montoya's gone fastest at the moment. It's not really representative, 1 minute 28. But yeah, just coming back to that intermediate thing, it's it just saves on their race tyres, doesn't it, as well?
Also saves on space as well. I mean, there's less space in the pit lane.
Just we were talking about Toyota and how well they've done this weekend thus far. Here's a clue as to how they follow their cars, their individual cars, from the garage.
Well, it's similar to the setup we've got here, where we can see electronically where any car is at any point on the track, and they have a similar readout there. Toyota have sort of pushed the envelope in terms of computer storage and data as well. They have massive amounts of computer brain power that they've got down in the track, and that's what we're talking about. You can see each of those blocks is a different name, a different driver, and we can see exactly where they were. So, for instance, yesterday, it's not that we could see every particular corner at any one point on the track, but you can see where the cars are highlighted, how many cars are out.
We're on board now with Juan Pablo, and you know, he's on race class. You know, why isn't he floating around on the intermediates then?
He's like a genie in a bottle. You summon him and up he pops. Peter?
No, I don't think that we should read too much into that running of intermediates. It's something that Michael does quite a lot. In fact, quite a lot of the runners do it. If you're just going out for an installation lap and really all you're doing is a systems check on the car, there's no point in running the race cars. They're pretty precious things, so you just put on a set of intermediates. And as Perry says, if they're a new set, you might take the glaze off them. Although, if you talk to the tyre engineers, that is complete rubbish and a waste of time. It doesn't make any difference at all. So I think the main reason they're doing it is just that doesn't matter, so why run the race cars at all?
Peter, is there increased risk here with pit stops, given that the pit lane is so small? They're going to try and keep the number of pit stops down to the minimum, or they'll just do what they have to do regardless to suit the conditions, the tyre wear and everything else is normal? Well, because Monte Carlo is not because it's not a fuel sensitive circuit, because running a lot of fuel here doesn't actually slow you down as much as it does, say, other circuits. The tyre companies come here expecting a one-stop strategy, and that's the tyre they've both built for this circuit. So most teams will be going for a one-stop anyway, by definition. You might find a few rabbits at the back, maybe going for a two-stop, fitting into the Matt Lorenzo, let's have a bet area. But generally speaking, it should be a one-stop race. And I think the critical thing here will be who can run longest on that first stint. Williams are pretty confident that their fuel tank is larger than Ferrari's, which might give them 4 or 5 critical laps extra before the stop. But the McLaren fuel tank is probably right on a par with Williams, so it should be very, very interesting. We're talking about expanding the pit lane for next year, is that right?
Yes, they've come up with very interesting plans, very interesting graphics of the new designs. And I don't know, I personally think it's a shame. I hate to see change, because one of the great things about Monaco, where I'm standing right now, is where Grand Prix drivers for almost 100 years have been driving, and this is where the pit crews have been, and it's wonderful that Monaco is a circuit which has not seen much change, and you can breathe the same air that Tazio Nuvolari once breathed. I love that. But anyway, change has changed.
Peter, one of the things that we're going to be looking at on this, obviously, with the pit stop strategy, is that it's so bloody difficult to overtake, isn't it? So I guess they don't want to be in the pits too often.
Well, that's exactly right, Terry. I mean, if you're at the front, again, the computer says if you're at the front, you have a perfect race with no traffic. 2 stops might just be quicker than 1 stop, but you cannot count on that at Monte Carlo at all, because even if you're away from the cars behind you, you're going to catch the cars you're going to lap.
Yeah, what we did last year, I mean, Enrique was about 4 seconds a lap slower than David, and David in the McLaren couldn't get by Enrique in the Arrows, could he?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was 4 seconds, but it was certainly a big difference. And it was only when Enrique came into the pits that obviously DC was able to get ahead.
Peter, just one thing, as predicted, a lot of the papers this morning in Britain have been talking about one in the eye for Michael Schumacher. How is his eye this morning? We saw him obviously in some discomfort. He got something in his left eye. Do we know if it's all right today?
Yeah, well, I was chatting to him a couple of hours after qualifying, and it seemed to be all right then. And a few of the journalists were still saying, Michael, how's the eye, how's the eye? And he sort of smiled and said, yeah, good excuse, wasn't it? Laughing, you know, he obviously did have a slight problem with his eye, but it wasn't that big a deal, I think. More significantly, Bridgestone did have to run that new old combination, which took away some of their grip level, which is why it was harder for them to get the perfect lap and do the perfect qualifying lap.
Okay, well, Peter, we're on board at the moment with Kimi Räikkönen. I wanted to tell everybody what's happening here. This is Sandovo corner coming up now, and there's Ron Dennis actually at 165 miles an hour. Before we were just about to go into the Casino Square area, but unfortunately we've lost that picture. There's the Minardi.
Quite slow for Ron, actually, 165 miles an hour. He's normally zipping around a bit fast. Yeah,
he's got it.
It's not much downforce without the collar though on the shirt, I don't think.
I guess we'll get another chance to come back and look on ball.
Certainly won't be a free colourless shirt for you, will it?
This is rearward.
So McLaren's first and second so far.
You can see this at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. That's one of the aerodynamic options we were talking about. You see it above the airbox there. Jordan are using this now. Just below the rear wing, you see this big black line. That's coming off the airbox.
You can see it there, can't you? Quite clearly.
So Jordan have gone for that to try and get some more downforce. As we were saying earlier, there are different options. You don't need to carry all these things. Some people decide that one thing is better than the other. Depends how their car's working.
So the downforce they've got here is sort of equivalent to, half a man's weight extra than they would do normally. So that amount extra pushing down on the car. So just give you an idea of the
maybe a bit more than that. Yeah, a little bit more than that. But it depends on the guy you're talking about, really.
Well, it's a rough average, though, sort of 50, 60 kilos, something like that. Ferrari, you see they've got the winglets on the side. You can't see at the back there. They've got a small wing as well.
So we got some figures that the average car around here will be producing about 1,500 kilograms of downforce.
Was that 1.5 tons in?
Yeah, more importantly, it's about 3 times its own weight. Now this is why we say that if you could get them up there, you can actually drive these cars upside down. If you could get the car up onto the ceiling of Deleuze.
This is Sato's philosophy.
That's what he's trying to do.
Give me juice and a couple of good goes, isn't he?
There's actually a book open on whether he'll get into the swimming pool. Never mind drive past the swimming pool complex.
That was done back in the 60s. Hawkeye, something. He lost control and dived straight into the bay.
Well, still one of the greatest motor racing films ever made was Grand Prix, wasn't it? And I know they used a lot of Hollywood license with cars going into the harbour, but that did happen back in what my little ones called the olden days. But luckily not now. You wouldn't want to be diving into the Mediterranean with or without your car strapped to you.
Now Barrichello on 1 minute 22.8.
On board with Mika Salo. The atmosphere at Toyota is fantastic at the moment. They're really buoyed up. And this is a shot on the arm for both guys because Mika had last year off testing, and that's not always a good thing normally for a driver to get out of the groove. But it worked well for Olivier Panis. He did the same when he was testing for McLaren a few years ago. Came back stronger, got a great drive with supposedly a great drive with BAR. Unfortunately, hasn't given him what he wanted.
5th and 6th so far, the Toyota's 4th and 6th.
Yeah, Salo's 4th and McNish is 6th. And a Ferrari fastest, Barrichello. There can't be anybody there that's not been to Monaco either for the Grand Prix or out of season, and just put a couple of wheels up on the curbing there, pretending that they're Michael Schumacher or pretending that they're Juan Pablo Montoya. There's not many places where you can go and actually drive a Grand Prix track, not at these speeds.
Nice shot here.
Wonderful, isn't it?
Renault going around.
But the camera's quite high up on the top of the car, so you don't get exactly the same view that the driver's getting. You can obviously see the top of Jensen's helmet just in front of you, so there's a good foot or two lower that he's sitting.
Right, so if we stay with him, this is the approach now to Saint-Devote. Shifting down, getting in. Now that's where a couple of the boys clipped the inside and then just speared straight on, but this is going up Beau Rivage, 165 miles an hour now on the approach to the casino section. Looks like we've got a bit of drama here somewhere.
Straight over.
No, actually, Michael was helping him.
Was he?
Yeah. Michael was going a lot slower, saw the Toyota coming out really fast and just decided, there you go, sunshine, you can have a bit more room.
Well, you hear all this about, people seeing the red mist, seeing Michael Schumacher come charging up behind them and getting into a fluster and moving out of the way as quickly as they can, a bit like it used to be with Ayrton Senna. But good to see that Michael is as observant in his rear mirrors as he'd expect the others to be when he's charging up behind them. His racecraft is exemplary.
Yeah, that is courtesy, but it's also intelligence because he doesn't really need a Toyota as part of his own vehicle before the race.
Well, there are some bits of the Toyota that might actually help him, but not many.
The Ferrari is in the back of him.
No, the Ferrari is as close to perfect as you can get, I think, in a car at the moment. Interesting to see, though, whether they really do come good this afternoon and whether it was just a blip, whether they were victims of traffic and everything else yesterday.
A word about that pit lane, which we no longer seeing, unfortunately, because that's a pit lane like no other. Despite being an expert myself and knowing exactly what I'm doing, I've been nearly run over about 3 times down there. It's tree-lined, seems to be about 6 feet wide, and not chaos, because they do marshal it well, but it's a lot more intimate than your average Grand Prix pit lane.
It really is scary monsters down there, and I think that they should concentrate on making it bigger, but my goodness, what do you do? I mean, they're not exactly blessed with land on that side of the track.
You're fastest at the moment.
No, there's very little.
He is, sorry, radio message there. I don't know if that was Tom, but just telling Heinz Harald Frentzen he is actually fastest at the moment, 1 minute 22.2. Now that is in an Arrows with Bridgestone tyres around here, so for Heinz, not a bad lap, old son.
No, I mean, it's good to see, but I don't think it's necessarily indicative of what we're going to have this afternoon.
Well, I think we all know that one, but it's just nice to see him up there.
No, you're right. I mean, as we said earlier on, we talk about minnows, we talk about the big boys and the small boys, and arrows tend to fluctuate down the bottom, but every now and again they stick their heads above the parapet, and they've shown really quite well this year.
Yeah, would have been, as we've said many times, sorry to have my Jaguar baseball bat out, but Arrows using the same engine as Jaguar, in fact, probably a spec below, has really been dusting them off. So good for Arrows. They had some problems earlier this year. You know, silly things like the cars not starting at the beginning of the race, things like that. But seem to have cured that now.
But there's a lot of pressure on Tom Walkinshaw on the Arrows team at the moment. There's talk about maybe their top sponsor there, Orange, going elsewhere. Tom's just won a court case against his former driver Jos Verstappen for damages after Jos left or was told to leave the team. There are all sorts of things going on there, and their backs really are up against the wall.
Yeah, this might be a little PR exercise though, Jeremy, because you know, with Frentzen running around in the Arrows and on Bridgestone tyres, I would suspect that perhaps they're not using an awful lot of fuel on board, or taking a lot of fuel on board that car.
Those look at that.
Well,
fantastic.
It wasn't enough
than it does do normally for road cars going through. But you can just see on the camera there the incredible change in visibility and brightness as it comes out.
Of course, the camera does exaggerate things just a touch.
Never.
Well, look, when I come out with an expert comment, there's no need to laugh, Professor McCarthy.
I'm going to have to get you out in the car soon, Matthew.
Not in my bathrobe, you know.
Why aren't you wearing your bathrobe this morning? You're part of the Monaco set.
This is a lovely shot, isn't it? Just a great camera angle. I know I'm sounding very Anuraki, but I'm just genuinely enthusiastic about some of those shots. Absolutely brilliant.
You look good in man-made fibres, especially an Anorak.
So, Beau Rivage up now toward the Casino Square section, and this is the area I was talking when Pablo Montoya overtook round the outside in 3000. Very special. We keep cutting this short. I'm sorry I can't take you around the circuit.
Ah, but you can, you see, if you press your buttons.
Yeah.
And if we have a look at just 4 of the options available to you. Button 3, that will be the leading battle of the race, come the race, of course. Currently Nick Heidfeld there. Kimi Raikkonen's available on track B. Button 4, which will be the mid-table battles, if you like, in the race. Then you've got your on-board camera channel, which I can't really explain any more about that, can I? On-board camera channel. Button 6 and button 7 is the pits channel, currently showing you some technical information. But if you want to see Tom Walkinshaw looking happy as Larry, flick onto button 7 now.
He's been listening to us, clearly.
Bless.
Exactly. His man's still fastest, though.
Yeah.
So,
well.
There we go. We've already made that point. But you're right. I mean, you could sit and look at, a personal opinion here, the onboard camera channel for the whole race for Monaco.
I tell you what is interesting here is that, you know, given the nature of this circuit, some of the corners are so tight that a couple of teams have had to make modifications. McLaren themselves have actually had to take a little bit out of their wishbone so that they can get a tighter turning angle on the tyres, and they're thinking all the time about this kind of thing. And talking of the devil, there is the man himself, Ron Dennis.
To do, Ron.
And he must be pleased about this because, you know, getting the McLaren back up front, very competitive, they're, you know, fantastic racing team. And it must be hurting. It must be hurting everybody concerned at the moment that have been getting trounced, nothing short of trounced by Ferrari. So everybody's seeing this as a chance to, you know, come out with some honour, really, at the race which is the jewel in the crown of the Formula 1 World Championship.
Yeah, let's not take our eye off the ball, though, because, I mean, McLaren might well do well this weekend. They might even win the race, but I think once we come back to the real world, it's going to be a slap around the face with a wet kipper for them.
I think you're right, but that's why here's the chance. Here's the chance now to grab a win for either Williams or for McLaren.
And for those people that believe in comeuppance, well, if Ferrari don't win this weekend, it'll be justice possibly after what happened in Austria. I think a lot of people around the world will be looking for anybody other than a red car to be first over the line this afternoon. Interesting point, though. Quite a few sales of Ferraris orders were cancelled in the last week.
I'm afraid I cancelled mine. Both.
Did you?
Yep.
Both of them?
Mm-hmm. The estate one as well.
What colour did you go for?
Bright Essex orange.
That mistake there by Juan Pablo Montoya will be one of the things that could cost him this race. If a driver goes across the curb and is seen to have an advantage from taking a shortcut, they will be docked. And they will either have a penalty served on them to come into the pits, or something will be added to their time. But that is one of the only things that can cost him a mistake or mechanical problem.
Is there any significance, ignoring the team radio, which I couldn't understand, that our pole sitter is currently sitting second bottom?
A bit worrying, isn't it?
The only thing would be he's running.
Them.
Oh, and he's not. We just saw the back of a Williams there that had stopped. Maybe we'll see the shot again in a minute. It's not on any of the channels at the moment. I'll give you a shout if it is. The only thing is he could be running full fuel setup just to.
But this is what they all should be doing, though. I mean, if you want a race setup, you should be running the fuel that you're going to be kicking off with.
Well, clearly, some of those at the front are not running full fuel setup.
Well, that's the point I made about Frentzen. But back on board with Montoya, maybe he's just taking it easy, being cool, just wants to have a basic feel of the car. They don't want to stress the engine. Perhaps they're using lower revs. Maybe they feel that the engine could be marginal around here. Maybe they feel the brakes could be marginal around here. Whatever it is, but I don't think he's obviously not trying.
Pits channel Sky button 7. We're looking at Patrick Head, who's the technical boss at. We're looking at Patrick Head, the technical boss at Williams, and no particular concern on his face.
Michael Schumacher just set the overall fastest time, and it's gone just about 0.6 of a second faster than David Coulthard, who's currently in second place. Hans-Harald Frentzen currently retaining third.
Yep. And, woman in bathrobe. I don't want to interfere with the technical chat, but the man in bathrobe, old hat. Woman in bathrobe, sensational news.
How many bathrobes would we like to see before the end of warm-up? My guess is another 5, but there we go. We'll see how we go. Keep them totted up. Back to the action.
I'm putting a tenner on man and woman in same bathrobe.
Yes, it might be before 9 o'clock just, but it's 9 o'clock in the evening, not 9 o'clock in the morning we have to worry about. But you don't get to keep the bathrobes, do you? Not even at the Hotel de Paris.
Yeah, that's another 15 grand.
Stick them on Mr. McCarthy's ring bill.
Ralf Schumacher, that put him into 5th position.
Fisichella 6th, which is not. They didn't have a good day yesterday at all. We qualified 11th. Oh, gesticulations from inside the Williams. He's not happy with the wing on the front, is he? You can see the extra winglets they fitted there to try and get every bit of extra downforce. So he's just playing the setup.
Yeah, I don't know if he's putting more front wing on or taking front wing off. But if he's got understeer, if he's got too much of it.
Oil transfer.
I didn't understand that.
Something about oil, but I think it was difficult to second guess what they were saying. Sometimes the team radio is as clear as a bell, sometimes it isn't.
Right, I'm afraid I still don't know which way that was going up. But if he's got, oops, there's a Jaguar.
And that's exactly where you were at the end of the session. That's exactly where you were talking about, wasn't it? Where that if they cut across that chicane,
they were putting more wing there on Montoya's car.
Okay. well then he's not going to be happy with the levels of front grip. He's just trying to get a bit more downforce, a bit more weight across those front tyres so that the car will turn in and hold the line that he wants. Michael Schumacher. Heinz-Harald Frenzen's popped one in to go a little bit faster. So Arrow's pretty keen on this warm-up glory anyway. German 1-2 this morning. No love lost between Frentzen and Michael Schumacher.
I
tell you something. Well, I wouldn't say that. I think they're all right.
They're all right now, aren't they? Despite the fact that Michael pinched Heinz-Harald's girlfriend a few years ago.
We shouldn't talk about that.
Moving swiftly on.
Yeah. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, fastest. Well, I tell you, I can only hope that that is with a full fuel load. Well, clutch slip there. I'll try that again. With a full fuel load. Because if it is, I think Heinz-Harald could provide a great deal of entertainment trying to come through this field, and it'd be great to see Arrows move up if that's a representative performance.
Well, Arrows played a big part last year in this race, and with Benoldi, and maybe they'll do the same again here.
I'd like to have a chat with Patrick Head if there's any chance of getting to the Williams boys about this, because you know, they're not exactly where I would have expected them after warm-up. I mean, how relaxed are they about this, or has something gone wrong?
7th and 20th. Ralph 7th, Montoya 20th.
Yeah, I don't very often remember a pole sitter who was 20th in warm-up.
That's not a good sign, is it?
So maybe we can clarify some of that later on.
Irvine 21st, which gives me a good excuse to use a quote of his from yesterday, saying that his idea of a lap round Monaco is like Marks and Spencer's.
Pick the dirty side if you can. That's where we're going to start, so pick the dirty side.
Yeah, they're talking about cleaning the side of the track where they're going to start from. We saw that in Austria, where the cars actually clean the side of the track. Anyway, going back to Irvine, he says a lap round Monaco is like Marks and Spencer's, a pile of pants.
They're going into the start procedure again.
They are. And this is crucial here, isn't it? That it's good from a safety point of view that they actually get to practice the starts, because Monaco's the last place you want to have a car stall on the grid. As they line up. We get just one crack at this. And it's all marshalled. You can see the FIA official on the left-hand side showing them where to pull up.
Has Michael got a problem there?
I was just making sure everybody else cooks their engine.
He does like the mind game.
Nasty thing to say, Matthew Lorenzo.
Yeah, and what with him going straight over that chicane to let the other bloke through, and he's not nasty at all. Or anybody's girlfriend that we can't mention.
Well, she must have had a hand in it too, so to speak.
Right, back to bathrobes. Now let's talk more about Montoya in 20th place after the warm-up, and he's sitting on pole, and the significance of that. They can't twiddle any more with that car, can they now? That's what he must be thinking.
Well, they can, but they can't verify it.
Right,
yeah. I mean, they'll be looking at the telemetry, and if they want to go through some things and think, well, you know, where were we? Will this guess or will this estimate be a good idea? Yeah, they can still twiddle wildly.
Panis 8th, not bad in the BAR. But Toyota only one car in the top 10 after an earlier good showing. Running 4th they were. Now Salo the fastest Toyota in 10. And Raikkonen, the man from whom you would not buy a used car, is 5th.
No, stayed on. He's got that devil out of his brain. There's a few people out there who are going to be thinking, my goodness, I'm in for a hard afternoon. And one of them is going to be Eddie Irvine. And Pedro De La Rosa.
There's absolutely no joy starting this race at the back, is there?
Not much joy starting any race from the back, but round here, yeah, it's just going to be a total nightmare.
It's just a slog.
Got to keep motivated all the time, push within the barriers and come last.
All right, there's a prize for the most number of bathrobes spotted. Here are the highlights.